We have a lot to talk about today. The DNC. I don't know about you. I like to watch the DNC. Maybe it's some kind of sadistic joy that I get from watching, communists and perverts actually reveal their true colors to the world. I think it's helpful for the Republican cause. We have 7 bonkers things we're going to talk about that are happening at the DNC. It was actually unintentionally, the topic of this live was a little list I was making on Twitter because I had a good tweet. I was going to talk about all the nutty things that were happening there. And then I realized that this stuff is so nutty. It shows the character of the Democrats who want to rule our country and control our lives. So we're going to talk about that tonight. Also, there's some reports that outside of the White House, there are U-Haul trucks. Now, why would there be U-Haul trucks outside the White House? The whispering rumor is that these U-Haul trucks are to move Joe Biden out of the White House. Right now, as we speak, Joe Biden and Jill Biden have landed in Chicago. Joe Biden, at least, I'm not exactly sure if Jill is going to lead him on stage, maybe push him out in a wheelchair. He's going to speak at the DNC. There's rumors and whisperings that he's going to resign. I don't think he's going to resign. I think the only way the Democrats would have Joe Biden resign, 2.5 months before the election, is if they are so fearful that Kamala is going to lose that they need to install her as the first woman president. Joe Biden resigning would accomplish that, but it's kind of interesting. I mean, they did stage a coup against Joe Biden. They did kick him out from running for president, even though that very morning that he quit, his people had been on television saying, no, he's going to stay in. He's going to run. He's committed to this race. And then, bam, out of there. And of course, we all know reports are that it was a coup staged by Nancy Pelosi and Kamala Harris and Barack Obama, which I do kind of believe that because it's very, very plausible. All right, so we're going to talk about all of this and more. Again, let me know if you can hear, if you can see, if there's any problems. But so many people have joined now. Let's get to this. It's a new season of the Liz Wheeler Show. What this show won't be: boring, old, ineffectual commentary. Go tune into Fox if you want the generic political yammering that got us into this mess. Small assumptions allow big lies. So the Liz Wheeler Show will challenge everything. On this show, it's be based or our country dies. What does it mean to be based? Stay tuned. All right, today's show is proudly sponsored by First Cup Coffee. Go to firstcup.com, use promo code Liz, and you can get 10% off your order. That's firstcup.com, use promo code Liz for 10% off. As you guys know, we start our show every day with a prayer because we believe in spiritual warfare and because we know that we are part of that spiritual warfare. And if you know what I mean, if you get it, if you understand that it is no longer just, it's the economy, stupid, then drop prayer hands in the comments. Let me know that you are with me. Let's start with the prayer. St. Michael the Archangel, defend us in battle. Be our protector against the wickedness and snares of the devil. May God rebuke him, we humbly pray. And do thou, O Prince of the heavenly host, by the power of God, cast into hell Satan and all the other evil spirits that prowl through the world seeking the ruin of souls. Amen. Again, prayer hands if you know what I'm talking about here. It reminds me, actually, this was maybe 6-9 months ago. Paul Ryan, who's on the board at Fox News, he, I think, was on Fox, or he was on one of the other mainstream networks, and he was asked about trans and kids and critical race theory, all the culture war stuff that we've been talking about, you and I, for the past 2 or 3 years. And he says, and if this isn't an exact quote, it's really, really close. He goes, "I'm not really a culture war guy." And I was just like, what are you talking about? What are you talking about? If you are not a culture war guy, then you have no grasp on reality. And I say this with zero personal animosity. I'm sure Paul Ryan is a nice person. He seems like a good family man, but not the kind of fighter that we need to win against the enemies that we face in our nation today. All right, guys, more and more of you are joining. I appreciate it. Hello. Good to see you guys. I'm so happy to be here live with you. There's something special about being live face-to-face that I really enjoy. While we're waiting for everybody else to join, we're going to give it just another minute or two. I want to tell you about a funny text that one of my good friends sent to me this weekend. I was in my sister's wedding this weekend, and I got a random text from a friend that said, "Is your husband really converting your money to silver?" And at first I was like, what the heck are you talking about? And then I remembered that I had shared last week on the show that my husband is actually, yes, converting some of our money to silver. And I had mentioned that as it related to one of my partners for the show, American Heart for Gold, because we talk about it all the time on this show, but in all the time that we have been alive, the US dollar has always been our primary currency here in the United States, but also around the world. We are facing, however, something unprecedented. This may not be the case any longer. We're facing inflation, our politics, just look outside the DNC, is increasingly unstable. The government is looking to take total control of our money with this digital dollar. And it's why it's never been more important to take control of your wealth right now. Don't let your life savings become a casualty of Joe Biden and Kamala Harris's horrible, horrible policies. Now is the time to call the only precious metal dealer that I trust, American Heart for Gold. They will show you how to protect your savings, your retirement accounts with physical gold and silver. And yes, my husband and I are doing this. With the finest products, amazing customer service, a buyback commitment. American Heart for Gold has a 5-star rating from thousands of reviews, A+ from the Better Business Bureau. Guys, tell them I sent you, and they'll give you up to $15,000 of free silver on your first order. Just call 866-996-5172 or text Liz to 998899. Again, the phone number is 866-996-5172 or text Liz to 998899. I really feel an affinity, by the way, a little side note, for the sponsors of the show, because as you know, when we speak the truth the way that we do on this show, we face an incredible amount of censorship that verges sometimes on cancellation. And any company or organization that is brave enough to stand with us, with you and I, as we speak our values and truth, deserves our support. Okay, so the story of the day today and the base take on it is obviously the DNC. The DNC is going to be Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. This is the official Democratic convention where they select their nominee. At this point, it's kind of symbolic. It's not really, I mean, we know it's going to be Kamala Harris, not because that's the way the process works, but because that's what the powers that be decided when they installed her, when they kicked Joe Biden to the curb and installed Kamala Harris. She's going to accept the nomination officially on Thursday. Tonight, Joe Biden is going to speak. Barack Obama is slated to speak. There are reports that even Michelle Obama is going to speak. We don't know about that. There are reports that Hillary Clinton is going to speak tonight. I don't understand that one. Hillary Clinton lost in 2016 because Democrats didn't like her, because independents didn't like her, swing state voters didn't like her. So why is she still this figurehead in the Democratic Party? Why would they bring her on stage? Because just like the RNC, you remember the RNC, it was one of the best RNCs we've ever watched, ever attended. The reason that they had each and every person who spoke at the RNC was because they knew that each person was speaking to a specific demographic of voters that they want to recruit to vote Republican. That's why there were some people at the RNC, like Amber Rose, for example, who aren't really traditional Republicans, who don't agree with all of the Republican platform or all of our morals, but she speaks to people who aren't traditional Republican voters. That's a strategic way of running a convention. The Democrats, I don't know if they understand this, if they're inviting Hillary Clinton, but they are showing us their true colors. So the first, absolutely, I mean, this isn't even crazy. This isn't even laughable. This is dark, really dark. The Democrats are having an abortion bus outside of the DNC. It's a Planned Parenthood mobile abortion clinic that is offering free abortions and free vasectomies to the attendees at the DNC. When I first saw this, I thought this was some kind of sick parody. I did not think this was real. I verified it like 1,200 times. But Planned Parenthood, you can see it on the screen, posted about it themselves. A mobile abortion clinic, so they're actually driving around seeking babies to kill. Oh. And there are some people, especially on X, who are like, well, the Democrats didn't sponsor this. They're not in control of what Planned Parenthood does. Well, technically, perhaps. But if this was outside of the RNC would have repudiated this. They would have been the first to condemn this, to disassociate with this. But the Democrats didn't. They didn't disassociate with it. They didn't condemn it because this is actually what they believe. They want to sterilize and kill as part of their party platform. Really sick stuff. Also, speaking of people that are invited to the DNC, the RNC invited some, the frat boys that defended the American flag against the pro-Hamas protesters and rioters on college campus, because the RNC wanted to showcase to the American people that we value patriotism and we value courage. We value young people, especially, who are willing to say, actually, you're a terrorist sympathizer. We are not going to let you vandalize the symbol of our country, which is the American flag. And the RNC understood that those are people not only to respect and to honor and to be grateful for, but actually they're people that help recruit other young people just through their example, their behavior. Well, the DNC perhaps is doing the same thing with who they're inviting. They're inviting Jeffrey Marsh. What kind of message are they trying to send inviting Jeffrey Marsh? You remember who Jeffrey Marsh is, right? We've talked about him a couple times on this show. He's the TikTok influencer. Obviously a man. I don't have any idea what he identifies as, but he has a man haircut and he has a 5 o'clock shadow, male features, yet he wears this brightly colored eyelashes and eyeshadow and fingernails and lipstick and talks in kind of a weird voice. And the reason that he's famous on TikTok is because he recruits children to run away from their parents. You heard me correctly. He recruits children in the name of the LGBTQIA ideology to cut contact with their parents and instead send him personal messages on his Patreon account. Yes, if your red flags are skyrocketing, you're correct. The DNC sent Jeffrey Marsh, and by the way, just in case there's anybody watching who is not familiar with Jeffrey Marsh, or you need a reminder of how disgusting this person's behavior is, this is what Jeffrey Marsh does. Take a look at this. We could bring this clip up. I want to show everyone what he's doing.
Hi, love. Here are 3 ways to disrespect your elders. So if you're dealing with a narcissistic parent or a bullying boss at work, you need to 1, play innocent. There's some sort of secret code or language they're using to try to get you to do what they want. And all you need to do is ask, what do you mean? I don't get it. Could you explain that? Be innocent. Number 2, feel no guilt. Bullies and narcissists use guilt as leverage. And if you refuse to feel guilty, it doesn't matter what you do or what they do or say.
Don't feel any guilt.
Number 3,
that's what he's telling children.
Limit contact. Don't do extra. Don't go above and beyond. Don't show up constantly, consistently, and all the time sacrificing your life for their agenda.
Like, he's the definition of a groomer. He takes a child or a young person and tries to manipulate them emotionally, saying, okay, are you having a hard time at work? Are you having a hard time with a parent? Here's how you disassociate with them. He's grooming them. The question is, for what? What is he grooming them for? When you're grooming someone for sexual abuse, the first thing you do is instill this idea that they are not guilty of anything, that they shouldn't have any bad feelings. That's what he's doing. This man is a groomer, and the DNC invited him as a special guest. They extended a specific invitation to this person who was only known because of these types of videos on TikTok. The DNC is sick. So in Chicago, businesses all around the DNC are boarding up. Yes, they're putting boards in the windows. They're protecting their businesses against rioters. What rioters? Well, 100,000 anti-Israel protesters are expected to protest the DNC. You've seen the videos on X. They're all there. These are the pro-Hamas protesters. I kind of get a chill when I see these protesters because it doesn't just look like silly entitled college kids or, stupid well-off elitists who have bought into communism because they have such a cushy lifestyle. This looks like a foreign army to me, because that's the ideology that they hold. They hold an anti-American, anti-Western civilization, anti-Christian ideology, anti-Semitic ideology, and they're trying to impose that on our political system. And our political system isn't just a nebulous concept. A political system means you and me, and our families, and our institutions, and our communities, and our children. And I look at this and I think, these people, this would be an enormous foreign army. They're here in the United States, in our cities. And business owners in Chicago are so afraid that they are going to do to Chicago what the Black Lives Matter neo-Marxist mobs did to Milwaukee, that they're boarding up their businesses. Boarding up their businesses. That is happening outside of the DNC. Did it happen outside the RNC? No, it did not. It did not. The DNC is building a wall around the perimeter of the convention for security, and this one did make me laugh. I'm not laughing at the protesters, I'm not laughing at the rioters, I'm not laughing at the potential for violence, but come on. We gotta say this is funny, right? This is pretty funny. If we have a scenario where the left has told us that we are racist, Islamophobic, xenophobic, hateful, anti-immigrant, all these kind of terrible names that they call us that aren't true because we support a wall along our southern border to keep our country safe, and yet they tell us that that wall, Trump's wall, is evil, and yet they're building a wall around their own event to keep it safe from outside forces that want to cause them harm. Yeah, that's funny. That's funny. That is absolutely hilarious. And you'll notice that the mainstream media isn't really mentioning these sorts of things. They're barely covering the protests, and this is the kind of stuff. This is the kind of stuff that makes a difference. That's why when I was making that list for that tweet, it was supposed to be just kind of a cheeky tweet. Like, these are some funny things that are happening at the DNC. And then I was like, no, this shows the true character of the Democrats. This is who the Democrats are. This is who the Democrats are. The mayor of Chicago is trying to clear migrants away from the DNC area. Now, why is he doing that? This reminds me of when Gavin Newsom cleared all the homeless camps from San Francisco when Xi Jinping, the communist dictator of China, came to town. Couldn't clear it for citizens, couldn't clear it for Americans, but when the communist dictator comes to town, you can clear it. That's the vibes that this gives in Chicago right now. The vibes I'm getting here are, oh, it's okay for migrants to be in our communities, in our neighborhoods, to set up camps where we try to live and do business, but if the Democrat politicians come to town, get those people out of here. Kamala's paying influencers to come to the DNC if they post about it. I think it's up to $20,000 that she's paying some of these. So I actually think it's hilarious. If you look at any given influencer that's at the DNC or posting about it, you know that they are not that successful of an influencer, that they're kind of pathetic because she's not paying a huge amount of money to sell your soul. You'd think that she'd need to pay a little bit more, but Mark Hamill was there. Does he need $20,000? Because given what he's done in life, you wouldn't think that he'd need to sell his soul for that amount. But Kamala Harris doesn't think that she's going to get organic enough support. She wants to pay influencers. And I make fun of the influencers for selling their souls for this amount of money. But Kamala Harris, like Barack Obama before her, does understand that those influencers make a difference in young people's decision to vote and their decision who to vote for. So I'm not dismissing it as a strategy, but I do think that we should make fun of the influencers because they're selling their soul. And that, of course, doesn't even take into account the DNC platform. Did you guys read this today? I was on a flight most of the day, but I scrolled through this on my phone in the air, and apparently all of you guys saw this as well. But the first thing that I noticed when I was reading through this is I was like, why is the DNC platform about Kamala Harris, for Kamala Harris's campaign for president, talk about Biden's second term a dozen times? Like, this wasn't just one typo that someone typed. They didn't even update this for Kamala Harris. You know what that tells me? They're not just sloppy. They're not just stupid. Neither Joe Biden or Kamala Harris are controlling their own agenda in the White House. Even Kamala's campaign. I mean, somebody else is dictating what Joe Biden's second term was supposed to be. Someone else is dictating what Kamala Harris is. I mean, I hope she doesn't get a first term, but what that term would be. Who is that? Who is that that's controlling the DNC party platform? If it's not the top people in the party. They, of course, the actual substantive part of the DNC platform is they want to keep trans in kids. They want critical race theory. They want ESG. They want DEI. They want inflation. They want war with Ukraine. I actually think that might be one of the most under-discussed threats of a Kamala Harris presidency. It's not just that all of our money right now is being sent to Zelensky, who is a fraud and a terrible charlatan. And it's not just that sending all of our money to Zelensky is causing inflation to skyrocket here, which is devaluing our currency, making it harder for us to buy gas and buy groceries and threatening the US dollar as the world reserve currency. It is all of that. But it's also a threat to young men who, if this continues, this war with Ukraine continues, are going to be sent to war. Young American men watching this right now are going to be ripped away from their lives, from college, from their job, from their families, their wife and young children, and they're going to be sent to die in Ukraine because of a border dispute with Vladimir Putin. And it's not just young men. Under a Kamala Harris presidency, young women are going to be sent as well. Young girls who just want to get married, have babies, keep house, be the heart of our communities. They're going to be sent to die for Zelensky, the man who became famous because he was dancing semi-naked in high heels. And he now runs a country. Is that what we want for our daughters and our sisters and maybe even our mothers? In addition to our brothers and sons and husbands, to be sent to war? Because that's what's going to happen in a Kamala Harris presidency. And this is perhaps the most underutilized danger of Kamala Harris as president, should she win, which I don't think she will. It's maybe the first time that I've said I don't think she will, and I'll explain that shortly. But that scares me. I have 2 young daughters, and to think of them being sent to war because Kamala Harris won't stop Zelensky sickens me. Or to think of myself being sent to war away from my family. Any woman in your life. Because Kamala Harris is a proponent of draft our daughters. Draft them. Women's equality, go to war. No, thank you. So that's essentially the DNC platform. It's unlimited abortion, an open border, gun control. They want to confiscate your guns too. They want to discriminate against white people. They want to force religious people to adhere to a radical leftist ideology or essentially be excluded from all forms of public life. This is nasty, nasty, nasty stuff in the actual platform of the DNC. And it really is exemplified by these crazy, weird things like the abortion bus, Jeffrey Marsh being invited, businesses boarding up in Chicago, anti-Israel protesters, Hamas-sympathizers. These are people who are on the side of terrorists outside of the DNC. A mayor trying to clear migrants only because the elitists are coming to town. This is the Democratic Party. This is their platform. This is what they want to do to us and our families. And we ought to entirely reject it. Guys, I also want to speak about one of my favorite sponsors of this show, My Patriot Supply. As you know, I'm a proud American, and that means if you come after me or my family, I'm going to be ready. That's why I rely on My Patriot Supply. Their mega 3-month emergency food kit comes jam-packed with 33 varieties of both filling and delicious foods. Not only does that include creamy chicken-flavored rice, old-fashioned Italian spaghetti, and savory, creamy, cheesy broccoli soup, but you'll also get a bonus protein kit. It has diced beef, flavorful chicken chunks, and 3 varieties of beans in it, plus 9 different fruits, vegetables, and snacks. All in all, this emergency food kit provides a whopping 2,500 calories per day to keep you well fed and ready for anything. The way I see it, it is my solemn duty as an American to protect my family without waiting on handouts. And that starts with food that you can depend on for up to 25 years. Go to preparewithliz.com right now to save $300 on your mega 3-month emergency food kit. It ships fast. It ships free. Go to preparewithliz.com. Save $300. That's preparewithliz.com to save $300 on your kit. All right, we have some headlines today, and they're pretty good ones. I think you guys are going to like these. The first one is, I don't know if you saw this. If you go to Google, if you open your browser right now, and you go to a Google search, it's particularly Google, so you do have to use that as your browser. You go to Google and you search Kamala Joy. Scroll through that. There's about 1,500 articles just in the last 24 hours, 48 hours, about 1,500 articles that all talk about Kamala bringing back the joy. So what does that mean when we see 1,500 articles all at once? Look at that. How nuts is that? That's a coordinated effort, my friends. That is propaganda happening right before our very eyes. It means that someone who controls the media is telling them what Kamala once said, because that is their campaign strategy, to use the mainstream media to be Kamala's propaganda. So this joy campaign, not only did I see this and I was like, well, wait a second, that looks coordinated, because that's not organic that everyone's talking about that at once. Something seemed really familiar about the way that this was phrased. And sure enough, I recognized it. Believe it or not, I actually recognized it because as a child, I watched the show Hogan's Heroes all the time. Yes, a lot of you are going to comment and say, me too, me too. Great show, funny show. But you'll remember the Nazi slogan, strength through joy. It was a Nazi propaganda effort to force people to think that they were having fun in the midst of, in that case, in the midst of Nazism, in the midst of complete totalitarian brutality. Kamala Harris picked that same slogan? Ooh. Not sure who's behind that. But it's coordinated, let me tell you that. All right, so Amane Khalif, the boxer from Algeria who is a man, and the reason that I say he's a man is because he has XY chromosomes, which make him irrefutably, biologically, a man. Amane Khalif underwent a makeover to make himself look more feminine. And I think, Tim, we have this, don't we? We have this video of this because I want to show you exactly what the propagandists did to Amane Khalif. There you go. Okay, so now we have like a Vogue style photo shoot like that. The fan blowing, the hair, the contoured makeup. Oh, guys, didn't you know that this man's actually a woman? Well, you were wrong. It wasn't a man. Now it's a woman. No. Even Amane Khalif's coach admitted that Amane has XY chromosomes, which makes him a man. And this propaganda effort is, of course, all part of this broader effort by the LGBTQIA lobby to tell you that you are not allowed to believe what your eyes see in front of you. They are trying to erase objective reality. They are trying to literally tell you that this man is not a man and that you must believe that he is a woman because they say so, even though biology contradicts it. There's a tweet that I want to respond to, though. A tweet that I want to respond to. I'm going to bring it up here so that I can read it. It's Megan McArdle on X. And this is the reason that I want to respond to this is because I think that this is a very bad take. Let me bring it up here. Hold on a sec. Oh, it's on the screen before it's even up here. She says, whatever you think of the decision to allow Amane Khalif to box in the women's division, if the reports are true, this is someone who was raised as a girl and was eventually told she was biologically man. Think of how distressing that must have been, and stop talking like she's a man who decided to put on a dress so that she could have fun beating up some women. It's gross. So I believe that Megan McArdle is not conservative. And so the baseline takeaway here is Megan McArdle is using preferred pronouns, calling Amane Khalif a she when Amane Khalif is a man, so that immediately disqualifies this opinion. But this went pretty viral. About 384,000 people saw this tweet, and it's wrong for the following reasons. Amane Khalif reportedly was born with a disorder of sex development, which means that the male genitalia, the external male genitalia, was formed at birth, and there might have been confusion when Amane Khalif was born when observing the external genitalia. Is this a boy? Is this a girl? That has been reported. That part is true. And I do actually agree with Megan that that's an incredibly distressing and awful situation if that happens. It's a very small fraction of people that this happens to, that these disorders of sex development happen to. But when you get to puberty, if you have this condition, when your testosterone level goes up, because internally, not only do you have XY chromosomes, but you also have internal male reproductive parts, and you do not have internal female reproductive parts, you have this incredible growth of testosterone, or this incredible increase of testosterone, which causes external genitalia, male genitalia, to grow. So there's no longer confusion when you are simply observing the external parts of this man, whether this man is a man or a woman. So it's not, and think about how old young men are when puberty occurs, 13 years old? Amane Khalif is in his 20s, I believe. So at least a decade ago, Amane Khalif would have had changes in his body, even if he had been wrongly observed at birth and he had been raised as a girl. At least a decade ago, he would have had changes in his body that would have made him or his parents or his doctors say, wait a second, there must have been something that went wrong here. We must have observed incorrectly. Let's do some testing. Let's find out what happened here. And yes, that's incredibly devastating. I can't even imagine the brokenness that comes with that kind of disorder, but it is false to state that Amane Khalif just found out this week or last month that he's actually not a girl. No. He found out years and years and years ago and continued in this delusion. So yes, he actually is just a man putting on a dress who wants to beat up girls for fun. That's exactly what he is. And the LGBTQIA lobby and the mainstream media are participating in this feminization photo shoot of Imani Khalif because they don't want you to believe the truth. They want to destroy objective truth. Don't let them, my friends. Don't let them. All right, the third headline today, Governor Tim Walz. Tim Walz, what a gift to the Republican Party. I pray to God he does not become vice president. As governor, Tim Walz personally pushed for the release of a man called Myron Burrell. Myron Burrell murdered an 11-year-old girl. Tim Walz personally advocated for Myron Burrell to be released from prison, and since it happened, Myron Burrell has been arrested two more times, twice. This was reported by the New York Post. That one I find very hard to process, because it's one thing to be a communist sympathizer. It's another thing to indirectly support woke policies, which is still evil, but it's more indirect. It's another thing to have this tangible action that you took when you chose evil, when Tim Walz chose evil, that you can trace the destructive ramifications of that action to more victims. It makes me wonder what moms across America would think if they knew this story. This sort of unicorn demographic that the Democrat Party and the Republican Party are always battling over, these married suburban moms. What do they think? What do they think of a governor who allowed a killer who murdered an 11-year-old to get out of prison? It makes me sick. Absolutely sick. So apparently the Olympics have deleted Ray Gun from their website. Do you guys know who Ray Gun is? I think everyone in the world knows who Ray Gun is. Ray Gun is an Australian break dancer. Apparently break dancing is a sport in the Olympics now, which is stupid. That's even a topic for a different day. So stupid though. Like, not a sport. Not a sport. You can like it. It's cool to watch. Not a sport. Not a competitive sport. Come at me, I don't care. Not a competitive sport. Ray Gun is an Australian break dancer or street dancer who, I can't show her video because the International Olympic Committee and NBC strike anybody's videos, pull them down with copyright claims if they show it, but you've seen it. We've all seen it a billion times. Sometimes I see it when I'm scrolling on my X feed and I watch it again just because it's so horrendous. It's so entertaining. Well, there's a conspiracy theory that went so viral. I think it was the most viral tweet on X. I'm going to read it to you because I want to see if you think it's true or not. The reason that I want to know if you think it's true is because I kind of suspect it might be true. Okay, so this is reported by a pop culture, everything sports and pop culture X account called Kicks. It's been viewed by 46 million people. So when I say viral, I mean like really, really viral. This is what it says. Australian breakdancer Ray Gun is being accused of rigging her way to the 2024 Olympics. A thread, a change.org petition signed by thousands, claims that Ray Gun set up her own governing body for breakdancing to control the selection process and sideline other qualified dancers. Critics are calling for a full investigation. The Change.org petition says, hold Ray Gun, Rachel Gunn, and Anna Mears accountable for unethical conduct Olympic selection. Then, in this thread, I can't show you this video either. You'll have to go to X and I can repost it on X for you to see it. But there's a contrast video. Some Australian breakdancer who did not make the Olympic team because Ray Gun made the team. There's a video of this person and let's just say she's a little bit better. She's a little bit better than Ray Gun. Remember in like Ocean's 13, the Night Fox, how he was like going over all those beams? That's what this breakdancer looks like. So, actual talent. And this person did not This person did not win. She lost to Ray Gunn in the qualifiers for the Australian Olympics, which seems a little suspect, seems a little weird. So then Kix goes on to say, Ray Gunn's critics allege that she denied funding to talented but underprivileged youth, further accusing her of defeating phenomenal breakdancers in a qualifier that she organized. Are you allowed to do that? Allowed to just organize your own Olympic qualifier? Anna Mears, the president of the Australian Olympic Committee, is also under fire. Petitioners accuse both Mears and Ray Gunn of gaslighting the public and undermining genuine athletes' efforts. The demand for transparency in the Olympic selection process is louder than ever. To this point, neither Ray Gunn nor Mears have officially responded to the allegations. However, Ray Gunn did address her critics indirectly during an August 10th press conference, defending her performance and emphasizing the importance of creativity in breakdancing. Ray Gunn stated, I was never going to beat these girls on what they do best, their power moves, which is why I bring creativity. All of my moves are original. There's a picture of Ray Gunn going like this, juxtaposed with a kangaroo doing the same move. Original? You decide. Kix goes, Ray Gunn's responses reflect the ongoing debate in breakdancing. Should it prioritize technical skill or creative expression? Her comments suggest that she sees herself as an artist first, athlete second, but does that justify the alleged manipulation? As the controversy unfolds, Kix concludes, but the breakdancing community is divided. Some support Ray Gunn's emphasis on artistry, while others argue that the selection process must be fair and transparent to all athletes, regardless of style. The petitioners are not just seeking an apology, they want systemic changes to prevent future abuses. This case could set a precedent for how emerging sports, like breakdancing, are managed and represented in the Olympics. Okay. There is only one right answer here. The right answer is that if your activity cannot be scored on an objective scale based on technical elements of certain moves that you are performing, then you do not belong in the Olympics, period. Period. It's bad enough that in gymnastics or in ice skating, figure skating, that there are certain moves that there's a tiny bit of subjectivity when it comes to the judges rating those moves. But at least both gymnastics and figure skating have a scale for how judges are supposed to grade certain moves performed by the athletes. If that's not the case with breakdancing, what is it even doing? This is not a dance club. It's the Olympics, for goodness sake. It does sound like Ray Gunn might have rigged the selection process if she organized her own qualifier and she denied access, allegedly, all of this is allegedly, to talented people who might have beaten her. And then she was scored in this qualifier based on her creativity, her artistry, and not her actual skill at the moves. Yeah, that's shady. That's real shady. Let me know in the comments what you think. That seems real shady to me. Real shady to me. All right, I'm going to give you a little sneak peek of something we're going to talk about on Wednesday. Kamala Harris introduced a policy proposal for her hypothetical future administration in which she said that she would impose price controls in the food industry. Yes, price controls in the food industry. We are going to have a very interesting guest on Wednesday who wrote a thread on X that went super viral talking about step by step exactly what would happen if Kamala Harris imposed these price controls. But the funniest part of this entire story, I'm bringing this up, is from the Washington Post. The Washington Post goes, the Washington Post, like of all the places, says when your opponent calls you communist, maybe don't propose price controls. Washington Post. Thank you. Thank you. We're going to talk about this because the ramifications of price controls from Kamala Harris, it's not a little deal. It's not a medium deal. It's a really big deal. A really big deal. And people need to know it because this is what Kamala Harris, if she even has leftists and mainstream media outlets that are pushing back on her, you know that this is Marxist. Absolutely Marxist. Okay, guys, hit the comments. Let's read some of your comments here. I'm going to go over to X and bring up the live stream. Thanks, everyone, for tuning in. There's so many people that my browser is going slowly. All right. I'm bringing it up right now. I like all the prayer hands, by the way. Let me just say that at the outset. Okay, well, my browser's not working. Tim, you're gonna have to send me some of these comments. What do you guys think? You like doing the lives better? I'm kind of partial to this. It seems like a better connection when you're reacting live, I'm reacting live, when we're waiting for Joe Biden to take the stage and possibly announce with Jill Biden that he is going to quit the race. Do we think he's going to quit the race? I don't know. I'm waiting for this to bring up, just so you guys know. Okay, TJ says, live is great. When are we going to get final points back? Do you guys really want final points back? I like doing final points. You guys have sent me a lot of messages recently asking for final points. We can think about bringing them back. I think that's a good idea. Jack says, what is the most underrated issue besides Ukraine in 2024? Oh, that's a good question. Underrated issue? Well, the obvious ones, the border, abortion, those are the really obvious ones. The deep state. Underrated issue? Probably the what's happening outside of the DNC right now. If we're talking about aside from Ukraine, what's happening outside of the DNC right now is 100,000, I won't even call them anti-Israel protesters, because you can be anti-Israel, I don't recommend it, but you can be anti-Israel without being pro-Hamas, without being a terrorist sympathizer, and the people outside of the DNC are pro-Hamas terrorist sympathizers. But the anti-Semitism that has taken over the Democratic Party, and I don't mean Democratic voters, I mean it's taken over Democratic politicians, Democratic lobbies, and then the radical fringe of the Democrat Party is trying to bring it into the mainstream. I think that might be one of the most underestimated issues, and I guess I mean political issues, right? This is like campaign issues of 2024, because Democrat voters don't like the anti-Semitism. Think of Jamal Bowman, think of Cori Bush, these members of the squad who lost their primaries just a couple weeks ago because they were so anti-Israel. They were so anti-Semitic. They were so pro-Hamas. They were such terrorist sympathizers. Even amongst Democrat voters, that is distasteful. Thank goodness, for the time being, as long as we nip it in the bud. And I think that Republicans should take full advantage of that, because there are many, many Democrat politicians who are anti-Israel, anti-Semitic, openly sympathetic to Hamas terrorists, and voters hate that. So Republicans should remind voters that that's what Democrats stand for. And I think we have proof that within the last couple of weeks that actually does change voters' minds. TM says, what are your thoughts on J.D. Vance's changing political views over the years? Oh, that's a really interesting question. So let's talk about just one of his changing views, and that would be his support of Donald Trump, which I think is probably the most prominent of his views. In 2015 or 2016, there were recordings of J.D. Vance that were released where J.D. was just eviscerating Trump on those recordings. He was certainly in the category of being a never Trumper, and I think he called him like a fraud or a charlatan. I don't remember the exact quote, but that was the effect of it. And then, of course, he was elected to the U.S. Senate. He had campaigned as somewhat of a populist along the sort of mega Trumpism ideology. And then when he got to the Senate, he was President Trump's man in the Senate, essentially. Now, of course, he is Trump's vice presidential running mate, totally 100% pro-Trump. And we should actually ask, as voters, anytime that there's a politician that has a pretty radical shift on a particular position or policy, we should ask, is that sincere or is that grifting? Are they just doing that for to be politically advantageous, or is it sincere? And with JD, I did ask this question because I wondered. I had this same question. I didn't know, because there have been, I don't want to name names here, but I think you all know who I'm talking about. There have been some pretty high-level names in the conservative movement who have changed their position on Trump back and forth and back again because it's politically advantageous. And I wondered if that were the case with JD Vance. The reason that I don't think that's the case, the reason that it seems like it's sincere, is there are a group of Never Trumpers who were genuinely concerned that Trump would not govern conservatively because he had never been a politician before. This is pre-2016, before Trump was first elected. And then once they saw Trump in office and saw that he governed very conservatively, or at least much more conservatively than your average Republican, they admitted that they were wrong and said, oh, okay, I thought maybe he wouldn't be conservative because he was a New York liberal at one point, and I didn't trust that he was really principled, but now I see that I was wrong, and I'm happy to be wrong. Those people, if you explain your transformation, it seems sincere to me, especially because I could understand, I didn't quite agree with this take at the time, but I could understand how someone would worry that a former liberal who'd never held office but was now claiming to be a conservative, would he actually be a conservative? It's a valid question. But once you're proven wrong, once you say like, oh, okay, that didn't happen, now I've changed my mind and I see that he was a good president, I have no problem with that type of, change in policy. I don't think that that makes anyone a grifter. That seems sincere to me. I liken it actually to Trump's changing his mind on, he used to identify as pro-choice, now he identifies as pro-life. And I know he's campaigning right now. He's verbally saying that he's okay with the abortion pill. That is a political move. One I disagree with, but I don't think that he has principally changed his mind on abortion back to being pro-abortion. I do think he changed his mind from being pro-abortion to being pro-life because he talked about his conversion story. He told us why his mind was changed when his friend had gotten a girl pregnant and then that girl had kept the baby. And, you know, Trump said his friend just adored that child and he realized, oh my goodness, every time that there's this situation, a child is at stake here. When you can explain your conversion, then I find it to be much more plausible that that conversion is authentic and real. So that's how I feel about J.D. Vance, at least as when it comes to his changing views on President Trump over the years. All right. Missy says, what's your favorite prayer? Oh, that's a good question. Well, right now it probably is the St. Michael prayer. I feel like that prayer is so powerful and it's so pertinent to not only my personal life and my political life and my professional life, but our country as a whole. I do really like that prayer. I also like Father Chad Ripperger's deliverance prayers for the laity. I don't know if you guys have read that book, but I really find those prayers to be really powerful. I say the rosary every day. I love those prayers as well. I like the Fatima prayer. I would say the classics. I really do believe in spiritual warfare, so my prayers are to make my family holy, to help them get to heaven, to pray for sanctification and salvation for myself and you guys and, you know, everybody that I can possibly reach with this message. So any prayer that is efficacious to that end would probably fall into the category of being one of my favorites. Guys, this was so fun. Thank you so much for being here. Make sure that you like this live, like this video, leave me a comment, let me know if you want to do it again live right here on X, on Facebook, on YouTube. It was so great to talk to you guys. I'm Liz Wheeler. This is The Liz Wheeler Show.